Well, it's also sacrifice, like if
Totally.
you don't
Yeah.
sacrifice for what you want, then what you want becomes the sacrifice. I've heard that so many times.
Yes, that's very
And
famous.
it's like,
Yeah, so good.
yeah, like I think about it for me, it's like I had to make this big decision to like, alter my life in a way where like I was so money focused for like the longest time, and then
Mm,
when I realized like that wasn't what was making me happy, like,
yeah.
I had this job where I was making a bunch of money and then I decided to quit because I was like, well, I'm I'm gonna make way less money, but I'm no like let's just say I'm making half as much as I did, right? To make
Yeah.
it easy. I'm
Yeah.
making half as much, but I'm way happier. So it's like, what was I doing? Why was I thinking that like money was everything? So I had to make this big shift. And it's like, it was hard to like sacrifice my lifestyle that I was so accustomed to
Yeah.
having. I moved across the country, like I wanted to like change my environment. But yeah, I had to like sacrifice a lot to really start, putting my life on like this new track. And like it was tough, but and I'm nowhere near where I want to be.
Mm.
But what I realized is the more I sacrificed, the more progress I made toward, what I wanted to do.
Then welcome to the Musician Secrets podcast. Today I have my first actual DJ producer on here. I've never, usually I do like variety singer-songwriters and producers, but I'm excited to introduce OGK today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank you.
welcome. I'm so excited because I love when I get to bring on new people and just like bring in like some fresh pair of eyes and different backgrounds. So thank you for being on here. And
Absolutely.
yeah, just really brief. I mean, you can take as much time as you want, but just explain your background, what got you into music and your journey to where you are now, basically.
Sure. So right now I'm in Chicago at my parents' house. I'm in town for a music festival, North Coast Music Festival in Chicago. Super excited, super pumped. But I'm currently living in Phoenix, so moved out there about a year ago. But as far as my background goes, I really don't have like a traditional background in music. Like prior to the podcast starting, we were talking about how your background is in
Yeah.
like you went to music school and like all that kind of stuff. And I've always just been like a dabbler in music and
Yeah.
um, I taught myself how to play the drums, and like that was kind of like my introduction into anything music related. It was all rhythmic, and I
Yeah.
always been the guy like tapping on the desk or like my legs or something like that. So
Yeah.
I kind of have like the rhythm portion of it down, but as far as like melodies, harmonies, chords, all that structure and music theory is just like
Yeah.
way over my head, and
Yeah.
I pretty much just go by ear. And I guess I could call myself somewhat of a singer, but like not professionally.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, as far as production goes, that kind of started a couple of years ago. I got pretty into it just from going to festivals and like seeing electronic music. It was like my first ever taste of that was like, several years ago, like on the tail end of when I went to university.
Yeah.
And just seeing that like was I think the thing that was most interesting to me about it was that it was just one guy or
Yeah.
two guys or a girl.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just one person up there. They were doing all this stuff. I thought they were like making sounds up there. I didn't think
Yeah.
that they were just playing songs. So I was like just floored and completely like just, it took me to like this whole other world like in my head. I was just like, this is just nuts, and I had no idea like what was going on. Like I was just it like completely engulfed, and I was like, I have to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
So that was a couple of years ago, and since then I've kind of dabbled in it, but since the last like year and a half I've really started to like take it seriously, and I'm trying to make that like my life path. So yeah, the last year and a half has been pretty crazy.
Yeah, you should. You should make it your full-time gig. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the goal. Right now, I'm still
Yeah.
doing some side stuff. Like
Yeah.
I do. marketing and advertising for local businesses. Like that's kind of like how I make my money. And I'm able to do that from anywhere, which is nice. So I don't have
That's
to like
good,
show up
yeah.
to an office or something. And yeah, I mean, I had the job, the 9 to 5, the corporate thing. And like,
Yeah.
I just, at the end of the day, you can't come back and like work on music. It's just not, you don't have anything left, in the tank. So I knew that if I ever wanted to, pursue it, I would have to find another way to make money that wasn't so just like draining.
Yeah, I get that. It's really good that you're already like in the marketing space and advertising space, because musicians usually are the worst in marketing. We do not know how to market, so that you've got a leg up on all of us.
I was just actually told that by a friend, one of my good friends, Chris Diamond. He's out in Chicago, just moved to Austin actually, or he's moving to Austin. I think right now he's in Houston, but yeah, it was weird. I had this like thought, like, man, I started doing this marketing thing, and like, I'm like wasting time. I should have just focused on music or whatever. And he was like, no, like you did not waste time, my friend. Like you got some skills that are going to be very useful in about a year and a half. And I'm like, that's a really good way to look at it. Like although it took me maybe a little bit longer, and like, I would have wanted to like focus on music more so like right away. He's like, yeah, but then you focus on music and then nobody hears it because you can't get your stuff out there. So so yeah, I'm actually
smart friend. Smart friend, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely been like kind of what do you call that, like a mentor for me since day one. Even though we live on opposite sides of the country now, I still trust in him to kind of give me a lot of that advice when I'm needing it.
Yeah, keep him close. He seems like a really smart guy. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Like, because like that was the thing that I ran into, is like even though I studied pop music, I graduated and I'm like, well, wow, like what now? We don't know the business aspect of stuff. Like I didn't know what marketing was. And I had an interview with Chris Bradley. She's now producing too, and she does it as her full-time gig. She's really cool, and she said that musicians are the only people that don't know they're in business. And I'm just like, yes.
I would argue that after working with a lot of small business owners, musicians aren't the only ones that don't know their own business.
Yeah. But no, yeah, but there are lots, but definitely like this is what I've seen like just pop up all the time with all the musicians I'm talking to. Is like, oh, it's just all about the music and all about, but I'm like, if nobody can hear it, then what's the point? Not what's the point, because it's something you're creating, but we want it to be heard, right? So
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a weird sort of like, you have to have both. Like you have to be, at least from what I understand and what I think, what I believe to be true, is like you have to do it even if you know that nobody's going to listen. Like that's a superior musician, is somebody who does it regardless of whether anybody's listening.
Yeah.
I think of like Ed Sheeran, like he played at like park benches, like, and with no promise of ever being anything or having anybody hear his stuff. And then it's like, he didn't really, I mean, who knows the real backstory? This is like the fairy tale backstory that they tell you. But the point is like, you'd like to believe this kid was just playing on a park bench and someone scooped him up and said, hey man, you're going to be a great, sensation or whatever. And then like, he was, well, I'm just playing on a park bench, so, but then you also have the other side of it, which is, I don't know if you follow like rap and that whole world at all, or like that kind of
not necessarily.
I don't really either that much, but there's one guy in particular, Russ, who he wrote a book. It's called I think it's called It's All in Your Head. And he's like the complete opposite side of that, where he was always like trying to get himself, get his music heard, and like, trying everything, and he was on like project number like 10 or 11, and he was, and these are not just like, EPs of 3-4 songs. These are full length albums with, song after song after song, and he's releasing it, 10th album, 11th album, and he's like, what is going on? Like, why is it not happening for me yet? So he's like this guy that was always scheming and trying to figure out a way to make it happen. And he came out with like this 1 track a week mentality, where he started putting out 1 track per week, and giving each song its own measure of devotion and marketing and album art, or not album, but song cover art, and like the whole thing. And that's really what took him from not getting his music heard to getting his music heard. So it's like you kind of have to have this balance, I think, of where, at least is what I believe, of like, you have to be smart to get your music heard, because that's ultimately the goal, but you have to do it even if like, nobody knows if you're going to take off, or your music's ever going to get heard, or if anybody's ever going to care, but you have to do it regardless of that. It's like a weird sort of balance. You have to be like both people.
Yeah. I think I've heard about that. Like, the story kind of sounds familiar, where someone just, I think also, if you're just like consistent, like it'll happen eventually. Like, who was it? What's the founder of Virgin? What's his name? Richard.
Founder of Virgin.
Yeah, the blonde guy with what? Anyway, I forgot his name, but the founder of Virgin. He's like, obviously, he's like, super rich, and everyone, he's very successful, and he says, like, if especially in marketing,
I'm Googling it right now. Founder.
What's his, I think it's
Virgin.
like Richard something.
Richard Branson. I was gonna say Branson, but I didn't want to sound stupid.
Branson. I'd be like, so Richard Branson, right? That's his name. And he says, like, if you want 2 wins, you need to fail 8 times before that, right? So he says, like, so 10 times. So you have to go at it at least 10 times. I mean, this is like just a statistic, but just in general in life, if there's anything you want, you have to be prepared to go through the no to get the one yes. And then that one yes just changes everything, right? And most of the time we're so scared after the second or third no that we quit. And he's like, just because it means no now doesn't mean no in the future, because you're going to be growing and learning, hopefully, right? And it just means you're just not ready right now. And I think that kind of just shifted my perspective on this like failure situation. And because it's really not, like, it just means, there's still some work you need to do. And I think that's really cool. If you're just consistent, you are what you repeatedly do. So if he's bringing out tracks on a regular basis, that's who he becomes. And when he has the 8, 9, 10, I don't know how many no's, he just needs one yes, and that changes everything. So I think that's really good.
There's a business. I've been really into, like, this whole business thing since I kind of went out and started working for myself. And there's an interesting idea that one of these like business mentors that I follow would present, and I might butcher it a little bit, but the idea is, like, you want to have a good strategy and you want to have focus. So if you have a bad strategy and bad focus, like, you're going to lose. But there's also this third variable that everyone seems to forget, which is time. So if you have a good strategy and you focus, but let's say you only do it for 1 month, you lose. But if you have an average strategy and you are really bad at focusing, but you do that for 5 years, you're going to win. Because everyone else is quitting. Even if they have the best plan and the best marketing and the best team and the best Instagram and all this stuff, but they do it for 3 months, then they're going to lose. But if you have you don't know what the hell you're doing on social media, your music's okay and whatever, but like, you're humble and you're hardworking and you'll work your ass off for 5 years, and like, eventually you'll get there, So it's like that time variable that everyone seems to forget, because the law of like compounding interest basically states that whatever you do repeatedly, like you said, we are what we repeatedly do, but whatever you repeatedly do compounds over time, so it's like, you might not see the result of what you're doing today. Like I was showing you one of my songs before we got on, and it's like I almost didn't sit down that day. I was like, you know what, like I've been going at it so hard like this week, like I just need to like have a day, you know. And like I just was I'm coming to Chicago in a couple days, like I should start cleaning the house and getting everything in order and doing dishes and you know, maybe get a haircut and like, you know, whatever, like do what I got to do to like get ready to like leave to go to Chicago. And I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna sit down for a couple hours. Like I have some time in the morning, you know. I pounded a coffee and I sat down and I created that. Like that's one of the best songs I've ever made, and it was just because I decided to sit down that day. So it's like we don't actually know and I learned so much by doing just that one song. So it's like I got that like immediate feedback, but like let's say that song gets signed by like some music label in like 2 years. Like if I didn't sit down that day to write it, like you know, that wouldn't happen. So it's like we don't often know the repercussions or like the future results of our actions today. We just have to trust that what we're doing is going to get us there and keep doing it every day, because like life is not this one big decision. Like you don't decide to just like, all right, I'm going to persevere. It's like, no, you have to decide every day. Every day you have to decide like, no, I'm doing it again today. I'm persevering again, like right now, you know. And then you have to decide again in another hour. I'm going to do it. I'm going to persevere for another hour. You know, it's like these micro decisions that like lead up to the thing, you know?
Totally. Yeah, there is, it's interesting that you're bringing this up, because there's a quote that I really like, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but it basically says that, you know, at the end, all our like micro decisions that we've been making over the decades, right, will all like compound and come together and clearly show our values and who we really are as a person. And I thought it was so interesting, because I think you just kind of go, oh, it's just today. Oh, it's just today. Let's do it tomorrow. Like we just see like the day to day, and we don't see, you know, I'm already 26. Everything I've been doing has been like adding up to the moment where I am now, right? All these like micro decisions. It made me the person that I am today. And so it's just, I just bought this poster. My husband thinks I was nuts to get it, but it's basically a poster, and it's called the 400K week or something. And it shows you your weeks through from like 0 to 88. And so you box for every week, you always box like,
oh, I've seen that. You put it on the wall and you check a box and it shows you like how much life you have left, basically.
Exactly. And I mean, it might sound a little bit like weird, but for me,
I love that.
Seeing that every day is like the wake up call to, you know what, today matters, tomorrow matters. This decision I make today, those little micro decisions you're talking about, like what decisions am I making now that are going to matter 1 year from now, 10 years from now? You like you said, like you just sat down and you just did it, right? And you don't know what repercussions that has. And so I think that was it's just a constant reminder for me to be like, you know, today matters. And it's not just today, like, okay, what is on my to-do list? Like stuff like that.
I've never met someone that actually purchased one of those before. And it's really cool that like hearing that you love it so much, because every time I saw an ad for that on like Instagram, I'm like, that looks kind of cool, but also it's like, do I really need that? You know, exactly. But hearing how it made you feel is like really cool. And now I'm like, maybe I should get one.
Yeah, no, it really like, that's what I thought at first too. And then I always put it off. And I'm like, you know what? I'm really good at procrastinating. And so I just need that constant reminder and be like, you know what? Okay, today matters. I'm going to do this today. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to write the song. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to have this interview today. I'm going to sit down and, you know, I'm just going to do it no matter what. And that kind of helps. It's a weird way, but I'm just, maybe it's because I'm a visual learner. And if I have it like in front of me, like every day, I'm like, okay, let's get to work. Do it.
I did something recently kind of similar to that. So that same business mentor, he talks about taking allotment of like where your time goes. Yeah. Because often it's like, you know, oh, I don't have time to write music today, or I don't have time to do this, or I don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
But time is this like elusive thing that we don't really understand. Like, and we understand how it works intellectually. You're like, tick, 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 tick. I get it. What's not to get, you know, time passes. But what we don't understand is like the baseline of like, for example, let's like compare it to like money. I can check my bank account right now and I can see I have, you know, this many dollars in my bank account. So it's like, that's my baseline. It's like,
sorry, I'm just sorry. I'm just talking to my husband. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, you have this and this money. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So like if you're looking at it, compared it to money, like money is real easy. Like you say like, okay, I have this many dollars in my bank account or whatever. Like that's an easy way to like get a baseline of like where you're at right now. But with time, we don't really like, we're really bad at knowing where our time goes. It's just like, it just goes places and we don't even know where it goes. Like some people are, it's hard with money too.
Yeah.
But you can actually go back and you can check your bank statement and see where your money went. And you can, you know, see like a very accurate description of like where it goes. But like, let's say, you know, this is the worst thing because we all do it, but like social media, like how much time did you spend on social media? So it's like, you know, you can kind of see like sort of in your phone, like where your time went, you know, like on when you're using your phone, it has like the screen time thing, but like how much time did you spend like walking around the house dancing with your headphones in listening to the song that you made yesterday, like, or something like that, or how much time did you spend like, you know, at the gym? How much time did you spend in transit between places driving? How much time did you spend cleaning the house? Or how much time did you spend watching TV? So this exercise that I did is, it's called 100 units of time. At least that's what he calls it. Basically what you do is you set a recurring alarm you'll love this. So you set a recurring alarm every 30 minutes from like, let's say you normally wake up at 6 a.m. So you would, your first alarm would be waking up, and then you have another one at 6:30, and then you have another one at 7, and then 7:30, and then 8. And you write down what you did for the previous half an hour. So I use like my phone, like notes app, and you do this for a full week. So like, this isn't something that you just do for like a day or whatever.
Yeah.
And it is like mind blowing to see. And you don't want to, so like what I did the first time, I've done it twice. The first time I did it, and you want to do this like every couple months because life is always changing and responsibilities, or you have a new job or whatever, and like things change.
Especially as musicians, because like sometimes you're gigging, sometimes you're like producing and stuff like that. So yeah, totally get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like when you're in these different phases of life, you want to take account of where your time's going, because time is not this like endless thing. It's like the most valuable asset we have, right? So
yeah,
I've done it twice now. The first time I did it, I kind of didn't realize I was like cheating, but I was like trying to like be good, you know? So I'm like, I'm not going to use my phone. I'm like, I'm going to like go to the gym every day and like whatever. So like I had like this prize week that was like perfect, you know? And like every half an hour I was like, oh yeah, I like smashed it, you know, I did this. And then I, you know, I was like, and I came back from it. And then what happened was I went back to my old habits, and I was like, well, the 100 units of time didn't really matter. But then the second time I did it, I was like really just truthful, and I didn't try to like, you know, be better or whatever. Like during that week, I just like did my normal stuff. And I'm like, I mean, no one will ever see it, but like, I was just embarrassed of myself, like how much time like went just like out the window, you know?
Right.
So what I came to find was like, first I'm thinking I don't have any time to do music, you know, and I'm like, I'm so busy, and I'm like, I can't find time to sit down and produce. So after the whole thing, and I was like, I can sit down for like 5 hours a day if I really want to, you know, but I have to cut out like this, and I have to cut out this, and I have to cut out this. And like social media is gone, like it's off my phone, like, you know, if I have to post, I'll post something, and then I'll often delete the app off my phone again. Like, it's like, I'm weird, but like, I'll do that. And then like, it really truly helped me like a lot, you know? And the other thing, I was like, okay, well, if I can only squeeze in like an hour, what can I do in an hour? I can't write a song in an hour, but I can, you know, I can do like some synthesis, or I can make some synth sounds, or I can, you know, make some drum fills, or I can do some sample digging on Splice, or I can do all these things in like an hour. And then on Saturday, when I have like 7-hour time block where I can just write music, then I've got all these pieces that I did throughout the week, you know, that I can put in, compose a song on Saturday or something, you know? So it's like, it really changed everything for me, like doing that exercise and seeing how much time I was wasting.
Nice. No, I love it. I'm going to try this out because I'm like really, it's so interesting that this is the direction this conversation is going, because this is something I've really like honing in the last 2 to 3 weeks, really. Because I listened to a podcast, go figure, and there's a quote that really stood out to me, and I put it in my planner. You can, I don't know if you can see it right here. It's like
Love it.
But
When you tell time,
yeah, when you tell time where to go rather than wondering where it went, you actually create freedom within your life. And when I heard that, that's, I don't know how to pronounce her name correctly, but it's Kierra Asnanskas. I'll have it, you know, in the links below. But that was just a slap in the face. And I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna try to do that. And so I now started this planner where I'm like really like, you know, not having a to-do list, but the time canceling stuff. And it's really cool because it just really shifted. Because I was like also this like free flowing spirit. I'm like, oh, just whatever I feel like doing, I'm gonna do that. But it really is like when you tell your time where to go rather than wondering where it went, it just shifts. And that's why I got that calendar. Like I'm just gonna go and do it. I'm gonna get the 400K week, you know. And I'm just making those. And I downloaded an app called, I think it's called the Minimalist app. I'm really bad with my phones. It's like somewhere, I don't know where it is right now. But basically what it does, it every time you go into Instagram or every time you go into YouTube or whatnot, it asks you how much time you want to spend on there. So it gives you like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And so when you say, oh, I just want to quickly check my messages, you click 5 minutes. Then after 5 minutes, it like pops up another thing. It's like, you've been on here for 5 minutes. Do you need?
But you can ignore it though, right?
Huh?
You can ignore it though.
Yeah. Or you can say, I need another minute, or take me out of the app. Right. So it kind of keeps you accountable. And that's really been helping me to like see how fast 5 minutes go or something. Sorry.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's one in the actual iPhone. I don't know if you use an iPhone or an Android, but you can set like a limit of how much you want to be on the app, so it'll tell you, but then you can just ignore it. And like I don't like, there's a thing on the Mac computer, like I use a Mac, and what you can do is I love it because it's like you can't undo it. So you can put restricted websites. I'm so bad with YouTube, so what I'll do is
I'll spend so much time on YouTube.
I'm literally awful. So I'm like, what I'll do is I'll put a limit of time on, or like a restriction or something. So it's a time restriction. So you say, here's my like, you know, websites that I'm not going to allow myself to go to. So let's say it's just YouTube, Facebook, and let's just say YouTube and Facebook. So you put those on your like not usable list for like X amount of hours. So let's say you want to like focus for 4 hours, you put YouTube and Facebook on the list, and then it won't let you go on those websites, like no matter what you do. Like you could literally like shut down the computer, like
restart
reboot it. You could delete the application from your computer and it will not let you go. Like it is insane. Like it won't, like, so when I see the screen time on the phone and it's like, hey, you've been on here for 5 minutes, I'm like, that's cute, ignore. And then I just keep going with it, you know? So when I need one that's more,
even more
like this one on, I don't remember what the name of it was, honestly, because it's been a while since I used it, but when I was really trying to like focus on building these big projects that I was doing, I was like, I'm going to use this. And I loved it because I would literally, I caught myself going to the website and then I like couldn't go. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I used like that program. And, but it's like, so you can't, even if you delete it, it's still, it's crazy. So, I want one of those for the phone, but I don't think they exist.
No, I think I just need a reminder like in between to be like, I think if I only like, oh, I'm only going to spend half an hour a day on whatnot, Instagram, let's say, for example, you know, it's like after like a half an hour, that was like, oh, you're done for the day. And be like freaking out. Like I would need like in between, I'd be like, okay, 5 minutes and like 10 minutes and like, okay, you're halfway, your time is halfway gone, you know? So I, you know, I think, I mean, it just depends. Like what you need to kind of get you keep you accountable. I think that's the thing. Like I was just but I think with YouTube, I think I need to like block it, because I'll look for a how-to video and then I'll look at the suggestions, and then like 2 hours later I'm just like, what happened with my life, you know?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I get on these like producer rabbit holes where like but you know what I started doing though is like because I would be really bad with like waking up in the morning and like just getting on my phone and scrolling or whatever, like, or sitting in bed, like you're just like scrolling on your, you know, while you're still sleeping or whatever, waking up.
Your waking up routine.
And I was like, this is so bad, but I could use this in a better way. So what I started doing was allowing myself the like, you know, to like have the candy, if you will. I would allow myself to use the phone, but I would go on YouTube and I would watch like a production tutorial. I've been doing this for like a week now. So like every day I wake up and I'm like, like I just want to like grab my phone or whatever. I'll do that. And like for like maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes or whatever, while I'm still kind of like waking up in the morning, I'll just watch like a production tutorial on like how to, you know, synthesize a certain sound, or like how to, you know, mix or master or something like that. And it's like I'm getting what I want, but I'm also getting what I need, you know? So like I'm not fighting my like urges, and it's like not so bad. Like I think if you make it like a productive thing, then it can be like somewhat okay, you know?
Yeah. I'm not ignoring you. I'm taking notes as we're, and so should everyone listening to the podcast, because this is some really really good advice. Because I know this is something that I think musicians in general just really struggle with, is like focus and like getting things done when we need to. At least that's with me. Like I have this squirrel brain, and my husband will testify to that. He's like, I'll have so many ideas and I'll start one thing and then I'll be like, oh, this is cool. And then I have another idea and then we start that. And then, you know, I'll have so many projects going on and then none of them are finished and stuff like that. And like this, you know, and so I'm just like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to use my time wisely. I'm going to use a planner. I'm going to focus. Tony Robbins says, focus, clarity is power. So, so I'm like, okay, I'm really going to hone into that and make sure I'm getting really the things done that I want, because like we're talking about right now, time is not the issue, it's making time. That's the issue.
Well, it's also sacrifice, you know, like if you don't sacrifice for what you want, then what you want becomes the sacrifice. I've heard that so many times.
Yes, that's very
and it's like,
so good.
Yeah, like I think about it, for me, it's like I had to make this big decision to like, you know, alter my life in a way where like I was so money focused for like the longest time, you know, and then when I realized like that wasn't what was making me happy, like, you know, I had this job where I was making a bunch of money, and then I decided to quit because I was like, well, I'm gonna make way less money, but I'm no like let's just say I'm making half as much as I did, right? To make it easy. I'm making half as much, but I'm way happier. So it's like, what was I doing? Why was I thinking that like money was everything? So I had to make this big shift. And it's like, you know, it was hard to like sacrifice my lifestyle that I was so accustomed to having, you know, and I moved across the country, you know, like I wanted to like change my environment, and like I wasn't really happy in Chicago. I do not do well with like the winter and like cold and snow and all that stuff. Like
doing good in Arizona.
The whole like seasonal depression thing. It's real. Like it really, like I would be so miserable from like the months of like November to like April. I was just like, I hate everything. Like this weather sucks and whatever. And there's something kind of romantic about like, you know, looking outside and seeing the snow for like 3 days, and then and then I'm like, all right, let's get back to summer, you know. But anyway, to get back to it, I had to like sacrifice a lot to, you know, to really start, you know, putting my life on like this new track, and like it was tough, but you know, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But what I realized is the more I sacrificed, the more progress I made toward, you know, what I wanted to do. And it's like, you got to start just chopping things off, you know, like, and there's this other thing that keeps coming to mind as I'm talking is how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So is this same business mentor guy. I love all of his content. His name's Sam Ovens. If you want to check him out on YouTube, he's got a fantastic YouTube channel.
Sam
But
Evans or what?
Sam Ovens, yeah, Ovens.
Okay, Evans. Okay.
Yeah, he's got a great business channel, and it's like it applies to everything though. Like everything that we're talking about that applies to music. Like a lot of that comes from because it's like the same sort of endeavor, business and music. You're starting your own thing, So, but yeah, sacrifice is a big thing with him. But it's also like how you do one thing is how you do everything. So he takes this to like in a very extreme level, where he like won't stop a song and start a new song on like his iPod until it like finishes, because he's like, I'm a finisher, like I finish everything I start. So he's like, I won't like finish half my food, I won't finish half of a song. If I start a movie, I'll watch it all the way to the end, even if the movie sucks and I want to whatever, barring some emergency, like I will finish that movie. And it's like, it's funny, like you start with like little things and then you down to like do a project and you're like, well, look at my track record of the last like month, I've finished everything I've started. Like, why would this big project be any different? So I started trying to do stuff like that, where I was realizing that I was like not taking some things in life like super seriously. I was just kind of, it's just like, exercise. Like I'll just go to the gym and like, get my gym, workout in or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but if that's how you do it at the gym, then when you sit down to make music or you work on your business or you serve your customers or something, like you're going to half-ass that too, because like how you do thing is how you do everything. So it's just like so many like golden nuggets of like business coaches that like apply to music. It's insane.
Yeah. I mean, we are like entrepreneurs in that sense. So you are a business. And so it applies. I think like just because like for everything I've learned business wise are just normal entrepreneurs, business people, right? Like the World Summit and stuff like that. It just the rules apply. I think as musicians, we always think we're the exception, like, oh, I'm so different because I'm doing music. And in reality, it's like, no. Like the same rules apply. Like maybe the last 20% you need to tweak, but like if you're trying to make money and if you need like traffic or fans, then these are the rules. These are the 80% you need to do, and then tweak the last, maybe 20%, but the basics are the same for everything.
I mean, it's like, it's so true. Like everything that we do is the same as what like a start out business would have to pursue. And it's because it's like the market, it's like a free market, it's very, people like to think that music and art is some like, airy fairy, like, we're all special artists or whatever, which we are. But at the same time, I mean, we're doing things that are probably more like, I guess you can call them beautiful as compared to like a business is very like black and white and whatever. And we're creating art. But if we're talking about getting that art out into the world, like now we're like ticket sales, let's say, is a perfect example. Like who's going to buy a ticket to your show if you don't have like these prerequisites? Like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have good music out that people have heard and they like it. And you've got like a certain amount of people that like care about you and, want to come see your art, live. And like, if that's not the case and you don't have those 4 or 5 things, like you're not going to sell tickets. So then the venue will say, well, I don't know if we want to take a risk and lose some money. And we could take another person who has a fan base and make way more money. So, maybe come to like open mic night or something,
Yeah. You can be you can open up the what are they called? Why am I not, the band that comes on before the actual band that kind of warms up. Yeah. Oh yeah. The opener. But I love watching them though, because those are like the underestimated really good bands though. Where like we're like, we'll just come later because whatever. I'm like, no, like I come early and I want to see the band before. because I mean, maybe that's just like the musician in us, but those are like the underrated, like really good like artists, and I love watching them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's something so like um something so cool about like going to a show and seeing somebody for the first time that you've never heard of or seen before and just being like
I love it.
completely like mind blown. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, constantly looking for new artists, new music, you know, something that's a little different. And that those are usually the bands that give you that, where I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Something fresh. So yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Hmm. Especially if it's like a different style, you know, like people that are going out and like, you know, going into the world or whatever, and they're coming back with like sound that they think
Yeah.
is them, you know, and they're going to deliver that to an audience. It's like if their thing is not, you know, like I have this, you know, how do I say this? Like when you are a part of a genre, like let's say dance music, like what I do,
Yeah.
there's so many people, like who are the big names, like Tiesto, let's say. There's so many Tiesto juniors that are just like, you know, they do the same thing that he does and whatever. And you
Yeah.
go into the opener and then you're like, oh, it's just like this guy, or oh, he's basically just the same as that guy. Well, it's like if that's who you are and you're just like this like second rate version of some other
Yeah.
artist, then like, you know, not that impressive, or like, you know, we know who your main influence is, so like we can see like where your style comes from or something. But if you see a banging show from somebody who you don't know and their style is completely unique,
Yeah.
that is just like mind blowing, you know.
Mm. Yeah, for
Super
sure.
cool.
It's like why shouldn't I book the original then, right? It's like kind of, I
Yeah.
mean, unless you want to like save money or something like that, but it's like, you know, just be you. Un, I do understand why some people will do that, because you're kind of playing it safe, because you're like, oh, this is already working, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like you're kind of suppressing your own you, and I think you can do that for a while until you get really unhappy, I think so. At least
Yeah.
that's just from personal experience. I mean, you can do covers, you know, as I mean, as long as you want, but at some time you're just like, you know what, I want to put out some original stuff. I want to be me. I want to find my sound and stuff like that. So that's a own like challenge in itself. But um it's like when you're like doing like all your DJ, like you're doing a set, right? Is that
Yeah.
something, are there any like not rules, but is there anything where you're like, this is like, I know this works, but here's also some stuff of mine? Or is it like, what kind of goes through your head when you're like prepping for a gig?
Well, it starts with like what time slot you are and like what
Yeah.
the venue is and what the
Yeah.
kind of show is like. So I've played shows where, and I'm going to say show, it's like a little bar, but like,
Yeah.
I've played events where like it's you know, like a small house music night. So like all the music is all like four on the floor, just like house music or techno or something like that. And you know what you're walking into. You're not going to play some like weird experimental like free form
Yeah.
bass music or something that's like way out there.
Yeah.
Um, you know, like, and then you got some other shows where it's just like a bunch of hippies and you're like, all right, I can play whatever I want, or like I can get really weird with it. And you're like, I can play like all the weirdest stuff in my catalog. And then
Yeah.
you have some other shows where like you're like, I did this DJ competition recently and like I knew that I could just kind of do whatever I wanted. And like all my friends that were in Arizona and you know, my brother and his girlfriend and my uncle and like, you know, people that I knew in the area, like they were all going to come and support me. I
Yeah.
could play whatever the hell I wanted. So
Yeah.
I was just like, I want to play like all my favorite stuff. So it just, those three kind of different examples are like, you know, you kind of like read the event and like what other artists are playing with you and like maybe
Yeah.
who the headliner is.
Mm.
And you kind of pick your stuff based on that. But that's for like a DJ
Yeah.
primarily. Like if you're an artist and you're showcasing your stuff,
Yeah.
then you're getting booked as an artist that has music, say like on Spotify and all the streaming platforms. Like
Totally.
they're booking you so that you can play your music. So the promoter would be really dumb if they didn't put you in a, lineup that fit style, So like if you're an artist, you could play whatever you want, because you're showcasing your sound. But if you're a DJ, you really got to read like the event, the time slot. Like if you're the opener of the night, you're not going to go like super hard and play the craziest music, because people are just getting there, they're having their first drink, and you kind of having to warm up. And there's this unwritten kind of rule with like being an opening act, as like for electronic and club scene and DJs and stuff, is like you don't want to roll up and like tear the place up, and then like the headliner comes on and there's like no juice left in the tank for like their set, so and you also don't want to play their music. You don't want to like play a song that they produced, because then it's like you're just, why would you do that, so there's these like unwritten kind of rules.
I think because there's a little section that I put in here, it's called the Google questions, because there's one place that we're the most honest on, and it's not with our family, it's not with our friends, it's not on social media, it's actually Google. And so I'm like, instead of asking people on Instagram, like, what do they want to know about DJing and stuff like that, I actually went into Google, and there were a few interesting questions that these are not my questions. These are from Google, just typing in, how to DJ or something like that. I can't remember exactly what words I put in, but these are like real questions that people are looking for answers. And,
I love it.
So I'm just gonna pick like 2 or 3, and let's see what you got to say, because I'm not a DJer, so I do not know how to answer any of these questions. So hopefully you can help me out. But one of the first questions was, how can I teach myself to DJ? I think that's how you started out, right?
Yeah, I was just in my bedroom, like messing around. So if you're trying, it depends on what kind of music you're trying to DJ. But obviously there's so much to learn on like YouTube. So I would say that I would start there. The easiest songs to mix and transition between are like house music. Music, techno, that kind of stuff. It's like very just like monotonous, like the same beat over and over. So I would start there, but I mean, YouTube is really like the way to go. And people often think that it's this like really expensive hobby. Free software, and you can spend like $200 US, and you can get yourself like a little mini turntable that you can learn on. That's what I did. I had a friend who gave me his to play with, and then because he had 2, so I had one and he had the other.
Nice.
And then I was like, yeah, man, I think I'm going to buy one. Like, do you want it back? And he's like, no, I don't want it back. Like, you can keep it. And I was like, okay. So it was like one of those things where like, somebody that probably has one laying around, and you can get a free software. And I will say this though, for anybody that is, if you're considering, you definitely want to go with Pioneer as the brand. So if you're going to get a controller, you're going to get your software, like go with like Pioneer's record box or Serato software. I started out on Serato, but as far as a controller, you definitely want to have a Pioneer, because as you get ascending through and getting gigs at maybe like a club or something like that, they're all going to use Pioneer equipment. So knowing that setup is going to bode really well for you, and you won't have to be like lugging in like a suitcase with your controller in it and like whatever. You can just kind of roll up with like your USB stick and like headphones, and just press, get on there and put your USB stick in there and start playing, So that would be what I'd recommend. Definitely go Pioneer and YouTube. Those are the 2 things.
Yeah. Great place. It's my best friend. So
absolutely.
That's great advice. So so like Pioneer, that makes sense, because that's what you're gonna, if that's the setup at the majority of gigs,
you can do whatever you want, really. Like there's some big time artists that like still use other, like Tractor is a big brand, but like if you're not, like, trying to think of like some of these people, like Zed is one of them. He uses
Oh, okay.
Tractor,
Uh-huh.
but it's like, hey, you're not Zed, so
Yeah,
just
exactly.
stick with Pioneer, and then like you'll be okay.
You can
So
always go and try something else after
yeah,
Master
for sure.
Pioneer. So, but
Yeah.
yeah. So the second question was, how do I start DJ mixing? I don't know if you can, for me, that question doesn't make sense, but I'm not a DJ. So,
It's probably the same answer as the first one.
okay, so
Like
they're very
mixing is,
similar.
yeah, very similar questions. It's
Okay.
basically similar question.
Okay, then another one was, what skills do you need to be a DJ? That's what I thought was very interesting, actually.
Well, any of the skills that you need to acquire are going to be easily found like on sources like YouTube, but what you can't really teach is like knowing what song needs to go where. So, for example, like if you're building a set list for the night, like, and you're, even if you're doing like a piano recital or something,
Yeah.
you wouldn't put like three sad songs in a row and then three like high energy happy songs right after that. You might do like one sad song and then two happy songs, and then you might bring it into this like, really like melodic and like, fast arpeggio sort of like, interesting, like otherworldly sort of vibe, and
Yeah.
then bring it back up into high energy, and then you might go back down into like one more ballad, and then you might bring it home with like this like really ethereal, beautiful like masterpiece. And then it's like this like emotional journey that you like take people on throughout the night is not something that you can really teach. And it's not about like playing the biggest hits or whatever like that are of today.
Yeah.
Anybody can do that. Anybody can roll up and go from like song hit number one to like song hit number two, and like, whatever.
Spotify and play a playlist on Spotify for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like then you're basically replaceable by AI, so like one if you want to draw a comparison from that, it's like you need to be able to like understand like the emotional journey that you're taking people on. And that kind of comes with time, but like you can also dissect other people's sets. So like when I was trying to learn how to DJ when I first started, and I was going to play my first show in college, I was like, okay, this is the type of show that I want to play, because I remember the experience and I remember who the artist was. So I went and I found that set list online. There's a site called 1001tracklists.com. And I went there and I found the set list and I broke it down, and I was like, okay, like super high energy song. And then it was like vocal mix over the top of like a drum beat. And then it was like super high energy song. And then it was like a love song. And then it was this. And then I was like, okay, so I need to create the same sort of like thing in my set. And that's what I did. Was I don't have the paper anymore, but I literally had this paper where it was like every song and then like the type of song it was and like the effect that was meant to have. And like, so I was like, oh, there's like these like 3-song chunks. Like that's kind of cool, So he's doing 3 chunks, and it's about like, 2:45 or 3 minutes long of this vibe. And then once that becomes a little like, okay, like same vibe for a while, we're going to switch it up into this vibe. And then like, oh, there hasn't been a song with vocals in it for about, 6 minutes. So we're going to have a song with vocals now. And, we've been at high energy for like 7.5 to 8 minutes. So now we're going to take it down to like this low energy, like vibe, and let everybody get some, maybe drink their beer, like whatever, like bring it back down a little bit. And then we're going to sharply bring it back up into high energy again and all that. So those are the skills I think that are like something that you really can't teach. And like taste is another one that kind of goes hand in hand. Like you can have like, it's better to have, like there's bad taste and then there's no taste. No taste is what you don't want. I'd rather you have bad taste, which like you can at least string together like the hits or whatever. I'd rather that than you have no taste at all. So you have to have some kind of taste,
That's, I've never thought about that, but that's actually true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrible to say out loud, and it's like mean, but at the same time, it's like, hey, these are the things that you have to know if you want to be
Yeah.
successful for sure.
No, it makes sense because again, Tony Robbins, he says success leaves clues. So instead
Mhm.
of like trying to reinvent the entire, thing, be like, okay, like what has been working? Why is it working? Okay, they're successful. They've played the gigs. People have liked it, and kind of dissect that. I think that's like the smartest thing to go about that is like, don't start from scratch. Don't like try to make up this, just use what is already working and then build upon that, just
Mhm.
go for, I mean,
And
that's
like
great.
as like songwriters and composers, it's like the hardest thing oftentimes is to just like sit down and do it, because we have this like fear, this like anxiety that like every time we sit down in front of our computer or our piano or whatever we're composing with, it's like we think that we have to like reinvent like music or something, and it's like if I don't create like the most epic thing in the world, then like what's the point? I might as well not even sit down. But like drummers, they call it seat time. You just have to sit down and do your stick rudiments every day, and like you just have to get in your seat time.
Yeah.
So I look at it like that sometimes, where it's like I'm not gonna judge. And this comes actually from a book that I read that would, if you haven't read it, it's like
Yeah.
mind-blowingly good. It's called The War of Art by Stephen
Oh,
Pressfield.
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet though.
Oh, it is one of those books where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna start this book today, and then like 10 hours later, you're like, still reading it like glued. And you're like, wow, I only have like 30 pages left. Like I chugged through that book in like 3 days. Like it was nothing. And
Who's it by again?
yeah,
The War of Art.
Stephen Pressfield.
Stephen. What
And
was
this one too, Pressfield.
Pressfield.
Have you heard of this one by
Pressfield.
Julia Cameron?
No, The Artist's Way. No.
Oh, it's so good.
I'm right. I'm in the like my headspace right now is like really in like the time management thing. So right now I'm completely like somewhere else.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that's what you need, then that's what you need. But I think
Yeah.
for like struggling creatives and anyone that's listening that like is blocked, it's The War of Art and The Artist's Way. Like if you're this like blocked person that
Yeah.
feels that they can't sit down, or you have writer's block, or you have all this different stuff, like those are the two books that I recommend. And I'm not like a wizard or whatever. Like I read the books and I know that they're serving me well. I'm still struggling through it myself, but
Aren't we all?
yeah, I mean, one day you feel. I just had a interesting conversation with this producer that I follow on Instagram. There's these cool new things that people can do now where like you can text. It's like a social platform phone number thing. So like, he was on like a road trip to like a gig or something, and he was like, anybody that wants to text me, like use this number. So of course I saw it and I was like, hey, like DJ producer here, like, and I had to ask him like all these questions. And one of the answers that he gave me was like, yeah, like every day I sit down at the DAW and I like at the software.
Yeah.
And he's like, I still sometimes like don't know what I'm doing, and I'm like, oh my god, like this is a guy that I like look up to, and he's just like, yeah, there's days where I still like I don't even think I know what the hell I'm doing. So yeah, we definitely all fall into that. Absolutely.
They're like self-doubt is like I think the biggest thing. I think everyone has it. I don't think you ever like get rid of it. I think you just kind of learn how to like deal with it or kind of quiet it or something. At least
Yeah.
that's how I feel. Some days you're like, oh, I can do it. I can conquer with the world with my music and I'm going to do it all. And then the next day you're like, oh no, like this is like not how I imagined it to be. And, so I totally get it. So who's the second book by? The Artist's Ways by
Julia Cameron.
Julian Cameron.
Yeah, here's the name for you.
Julia Cameron. Okay, thank you, Cameron. Because I'll link them up down below as well. So if you're listening, I can go and look them up. I love books. Like again, my husband is listening to all of this, but he's like every 2 weeks, the latest, I'm ordering some new books. That's like the only thing that I'm buying at the moment. So he's like, oh, a new book again. So Yeah,
He
I
sees
love
an
it.
Amazon box. He's like, I wonder what this is.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this, oh, yeah, exactly. It's like, surprise, another book. Mm,
Who would have thought?
who would have thought exactly? Something that I thought was really cool that you posted on Instagram, um, the second last one, about you. I don't know what you were playing. I see it all the time, but I never know what it's called.
Oh, yeah, it's called a so the Americanized like Western term for it is a hang drum, but it's actually called a hang. So it's like a long A, hang, and there's no drum on the end of it. It's just hang. But yeah, I just for like ease of people understanding what I'm talking about, I just say hang drum because that's like what everybody calls it. Um, or hang drum. But yeah, like people they and I've had one for like a couple of years and like I just dabble with it a little bit, but like I was like, you know what? I don't play this enough, So I started like messing around with it more and more. And I like over the last like couple of weeks have been playing it. Like I try to play it every day. And my neighbors hate it. They like bang on the wall like my apartment, So like I was like, okay, maybe not like first thing in the morning. Maybe we'll like dial it back to like 10 a.m. or something. But I was like going ham. I was hitting it hard and loud, and they were just like, "How's this guy doing?" Think I'm like, hitting metal or whatever. And it was so funny. They were like banging on the wall. I'm like, sorry, but so now I like play like super quiet, like in the middle of the day, but just enough to like get And I was like, I'm just gonna start with like scales, and like go around the whole thing and kind of do that.
Yeah.
And then I would see videos on YouTube and I'm like, I think that because they are different keys. Some of them are in like D minor, some of them are in like C sharp Aeolian or something.
Oh.
And like it's really weird, like these like crazy scales, And I'm like, I think this guy's playing one in the same scale as me. So I'm like watching this video and I'm like trying to do what he's doing and like I'm learning that. But then I was like, I want to find my own melodies. And yeah, I've been playing it for like a couple weeks now. And it's, I mean, I've had it for years, but rediscovering how much I love it, the past couple weeks. And it's like, yeah, I just kind of wanted to share that because I don't do enough like sharing,
Yeah. I mean,
I'm really bad.
I'm guilty. I'm like the worst when it comes to like Instagram. It's like every 3 months, one post or something. I have to, do better. But
it's crazy though. Consistency thing, like you said, like posting a lot more is insane. Like it just actually does a lot. Like it, and I don't know where this happened, but like local people are like knowing about me now and like following me and like other local DJs and they're like messaging me and like and I'm making friends through like the internet and I'm like, are you going to this like show? And like, yeah, I'll be there. And I'm like, and then I'm meeting people in person that I met on Instagram. It's like I could have just been doing this like since I moved here, I mean, COVID obviously was shut everything down, but yeah, it's funny how like I always chalked it up as like it's kind of stupid, but if you use it in the right way, then it can really like do its true like intent of like why it was made, like to connect people, like it can actually serve its original purpose if you use it in the right way.
I mean, that's how we met, really. Yeah. So, but what I thought was more interesting was the post that you put next to the video, which I thought was very interesting, and I actually wrote it out. So, like, because I'm just gonna read it because I think this is very beneficial for people to listen. I think that was a very great point you made. And you said, embrace the suck. Learning a new skill requires you to be vulnerable because you're gonna fail a lot and probably look foolish in the beginning. Don't worry, it's normal and nobody cares. Yes. The more you fail and the stupider you're willing to look, the quicker you will master it. And I thought that was amazing. So that's why I wanted to bring it up again in the podcast, because I think a lot of people, like, I think every musician needs to hear about this.
I stole "Embrace the Suck" from my sister, by the way.
Oh,
didn't
it sounds like something
that
like I would do. Yeah.
yeah, that first one, I don't think it's up anymore, but I think she posted something of like her playing guitar and
Yeah.
just she's never picked up a guitar in her whole life. So it was just like, just like the worst, like, and she just goes like having fun, like, and she's playing and it's like embrace the suck. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so funny.
Good
So
for
I
them.
stole that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the rest of it, I just kind of like was honestly talking to myself as much as I was like anybody else,
Mm.
and yeah, I mean, it's so weird like taking a video of yourself like playing an instrument and you're just like, oh, I look stupid, and then you try it again and you're like, I look even more stupid, I'm gonna try a third time. Like, you're like on the third take of you like playing your instrument and you're like, all
Yeah.
right, I guess this one's like passable, but like, oh god. And then like I posted it and I was like, now this Nick needs some love, and then but I was like really kind of like talking to myself really in that moment, even when I put that there. So yeah, I mean, it's something that I kind of like this producer community. Any other producers out there should check it out. It's called Producer Dojo. If you're into electronic music or any kind of music at all, producerdojo.com. But yeah, the guy who kind of runs the whole thing is this total savant when it comes to like mindset and like getting yourself in the right mind state of like production, and like how to be not just like somebody who can like string together loops from Splice like in your DAW of choice. Like you need to be able to like be an artist as well, and like that whole thing. And he talks about failure all the time, and he talks about how as an artist to grow, like you have to like embrace rejection, embrace failure, because like you're going to fail and you're going to have people that tell you no. The quicker you can run through that process and the quicker that you can be told no, you're like, okay, I'm that much closer to a yes. It's almost like there's this old adage that like door-to-door salesmen would use. It would be like, knock on 100 doors to get a yes or something, which is like far in a way like not how it, like I've tried door-to-door sales and it's usually like 1 in 10, but like this thing was 1 in 100. So if you just commit to like knocking on 100 doors and it's like, hey, get lost, and they slam the door and you're like, all right, that was number 1, I'm on to number 2. And you're like, you're not thinking about like what happened on door number 1, you're thinking about getting through the 100.
Yeah, exactly.
Like once you get through the 100, like you will have a yes, you will sell your thing that you're selling door to door. So I think about that in terms of like music. It's like your first 30 songs that you write, your first 100 songs that you write, they're all going to be, they're going to be trash, excuse me. But you have to just like embrace that, and every time you fail you're like that much closer to like finishing your first 100 songs or your first 30 songs or whatever it is, so it's like you're getting that much closer to like the success that you're after. Each time you fail you're that much closer.
You know what, I'm gonna end it here. This is like drop the mic moment. I'm not gonna ask any more questions. That's perfect. I love it. So thank you so much. I'm not even gonna ask my signature closing question. This is great.
Let's do it. I want to do the closing question.
Well, the closing question is actually a simple one, but I think the most challenging one, because what I always like to ask is, what makes a good song for you?
Wow. A good song. Is it like from the composition perspective or the listener's perspective?
It's your perspective. Like when you're listening to a song or when you're making a song or, DJing or whatnot, like what makes a good song?
Honestly, I think it's, man, I could go so many ways with this. Part of me is like,
there's no wrong or right answer.
it's like art is the most subjective thing, I would say like it has to like take the audience somewhere else in a surprising way. So it has to like take them on a journey somewhere in a surprising way that they didn't expect to like get there.
Nice. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. I just love asking it because it's a simple question, but that every musician, like asks themselves, but it's different for everyone, and I love it. So thank you, for sharing that, and for giving amazing advice. Because usually I always like have a section called for musicians, from musicians, but you've been like, usually I'm like, what are the three things that you would give advice on for other musicians? But I think you've been doing this beautifully throughout the entire episode, so thank you for
talk to. I appreciate this. This is my first podcast, by the way, too, so I'm super excited.
Yay! I love when it gets to be a good experience, and so thank you for sharing, just being open, and just geeking out about music with me. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. This was so fun.
Yeah. Where can people find you? Where can they check you out? Where can they find all your stuff, find you?
Sure. So everything is music by OGK. So I'm really not on like Twitter. I think Twitter is I don't know. I'm not really on Twitter. So
I'm not on it either. It scares me.
Yeah. So Instagram is at music by OGK. And then SoundCloud, if you wanted to listen once some of this music starts dropping. I do have a couple of DJ mixes on SoundCloud. So it's soundcloud.com/music by OGK. And no Facebook page yet. So we're still in the underground. We're going to get there one day though.
Perfect. All right. So no website, no as in
no, not yet.
Moment. All right. Perfect.
Once we get the website and we start releasing music and we're climbing the ladder, then I'll hit you up and you can.
Perfect. And then I'll link it up.
Yeah.
Great. So it's Instagram and SoundCloud as in perfect. Then I'll link everything up below, and I didn't have any problems finding you on Instagram or anything else. So, but just in case, I'll just link everything up. So you just have to click that link and everyone will be able to find you. So again, thank you for being on here. It was a huge pleasure. And
you.
Have a rest. Good. It's like noonish.
2:30. Yeah, it's 2:30.
All right. Okay then. All right. Then have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to the Musician Secrets podcast. I appreciate your time because you could literally be doing a bazillion other things right now, but you're here with me, so thank you. If you want, you can scroll all the way to the bottom and leave a comment on how you're liking the podcast, what you've learned, and things you've even implemented that have helped you out. As a little thank you, I put together a free members area with all my best resources, books, podcasts, and online courses about everything you need to know as an independent musician, from producing to songwriting to marketing to building a home studio, all the good stuff. All you have to do is either click the link below or go to alisekoa.com/free. I'll see you on the other side. Bye!